Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. We are in a new studio tonight, and I want to invite everybody to come on into the room tonight to work with me, to welcome our guests, if you have any questions or concerns that you want to bring to the room, feel free to do so because that's what this show is about. It's Mi Gente on Air, my people. And we've got a community activist, a community dreamer who is with us tonight. Her name is Andrea Pascual. Pascal is the way, but I make it Spanish, Pascual, no, but it's Pascal. And she is, like I said, a community dreamer activist. She ran for commissioner in Saginaw County. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to just invite everybody into the room because it's been a while since I've been here on Mi Gente on Air. And I just want to get a feel for what's going on in the community. And that's what we're going to do tonight with our guests here on Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I'm happy to be with you here this fall day. We sure have the fall weather now. It seems like it turned overnight right when September 21st hit, and it's cold now, and everybody is kind of struggling with, well, do I put my heater on or do I wait till October? As you know, we all, as good stewards, think we can save energy. But I know that there are those out there who already have put on their heater, and I'm holding back because I don't want a huge consumer bill. Isn't that a community issue right there? But we've got a great show for you here tonight, and I want to welcome everybody to our room here on the live stream, as well as to those listening in the broadcast world on Sunday evenings, 8 p.m. here on Mi Gente on Air. And my guest tonight is a community activist, a community dreamer. I've known her family a very long time, and I didn't even know that. And it's really nice to have Andrea Pascal here. I say Pascual because I want to make it Spanish, but it's Pascal like rascal. And she's just a phenomenal gal. And welcome to the show, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I
Yes,
appreciate it.
yes, and it's wonderful to know that there are individuals like yourselves who are very a go-getter, a dreamer, somebody who's trying to make a difference in the community. Um, Andrea did run for county commissioner on the board seat. For the primary, she wasn't successful,
Yep.
but she was successful in gaining a lot of experience. And so it was wonderful to see that we had a Latino running. And she's with me here tonight. We're going to talk about all kinds of community issues, community things,
Mm-hmm.
her plans, her futures, what she's doing as a graphic designer, and maybe some family history as well as we go on, because she has some real ties to the community. So tell us, Andrea, as we start, please, what's your background in terms of your family connection? I always like to start that with my show, is the family connections and how we got you here to Saginaw, Michigan.
Yeah. So I actually like starting there as well. It really does take me back, right? It allows us to go back and be a little bit nostalgic. Um, my family is one of the original, I say, Mexican restaurants that we had here in Saginaw. So I come from two very strong Mexican families, the Torres family and the Garza family. My mom is a Garza, so we grew up on Bagley. So large family, seven siblings there. And so a lot of people, when I see people in the community, most people associate me with being a Garza because I look very much like them. You know, that's the
Yes,
strong
you do.
resemblance.
And shout out to her aunts, Margot, and her mother, Blanca. I knew them way back probably 30 years ago now, maybe.
Wow.
Was good friends with my sister, Nancy Rodriguez. And the family that you're mentioning with the family restaurant,
Yes.
everybody give a big round of applause, because, man, we've all been touched by La Familia restaurant
La
on
Familia.
Genesee, the Torres family, Joe
Absolutely.
Torres and family.
Yes. And Olivia Torres. That's a very strong family, obviously. If you have, we were told once a long time ago when we were kids, if you have an EZ at the end of your name, then you're probably related. So it's a good rule to have, right? You always know
Yeah.
that you've got family somewhere.
Isn't that the truth? Yes. Well, Joe Torres and family, your Aunt Florinda, that whole generation, hard workers and great entrepreneurs in our
Oh my
community.
gosh. And that continues on with the next generations. I mean, you see Kathy Torres. She is a successful realtor, business owner here in the community, just a phenomenal person. So, Jason Torres, my cousin, he is now owning and running the whole enchilada food truck. So, just again, continuing on with that entrepreneurial spirit. And it's wonderful to see them in this generation doing it and carrying on that.
Yeah, all right, Jason. I, you
Very
know,
proud of him. Very,
being
very proud
being
of
a
him.
food truck owner, I know what that entails. So,
Yeah.
it's really exciting to see the increase in food trucks in our community. There's a whole enchilada in Bay City, and then Jason has the whole enchilada here in Saginaw. So
Yes.
we've seen him around, and that's wonderful to hear and see. And of course, you mentioned Kathy. She's part of a great family, the Torres family, but also the Gallardo family from the side that I'm connected to. So it's like we're all like mingled, we're all related. Isn't that
Yes.
crazy? And Andrea's mother, Blanca, and her sister Margot used to play baseball over at Hoyt with my sister Nancy on the Latina leagues. They were female Latina baseball players. And tell that story you told me earlier about running into somebody.
I cannot remember his name, so please forgive me, but I was at Home Depot and, running into somebody. He's like, and of course, again, the face gives it away. It's almost immediately, are you related to the Garza family? Are you a Garza? Or are you related to so and so? And so he immediately said, "Oh, you must be a Garza." And I said, "Yes, I'm a Garza." And he says, "I played ball with your mom and your aunt." And he goes, "It was just hysterical watching them run around. I could tell you stories for days." And I said, "Oh my gosh, I could probably be in here for a while." So
Oh, that's so funny because I think back of Margot and the difference that threw me off and why I didn't make the connection with you when we first met was that Margot and I believe Blanca, they had curlier hair, or is your hair
yes,
curly and you
my
just
hair
straighten
is
it?
curly.
Ah,
My
that's
hair
what
is
threw me
curly.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mom is the older sister. And she had Latino style lowrider bike club, which we were just talking about earlier as well. And that started back in the 90s. And so she was a community leader in her own right here in Saginaw, really helped a lot of kids get out of the gangs.
Yeah.
There are still young men that attribute that to my mother. And so I'm very proud of that for her. So
And I remember writing a story in one of the very early editions of Mi Gente magazine about Blanca and that club, and it goes back at least 30 years, right?
yeah,
Well,
gosh,
yeah,
yeah.
because Mi Gente will be 30 years next year, and they
Yeah,
were already in existence before we were. So
yeah.
it's been
96, 90,
wow.
96.
That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. So, what have you been involved with in 2024 as a Latina in the community? Tell my audience, and especially to the non-Latinos that are listening, on our radio program, which is 100.5 FM and 790 AM on Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in 2024.
Really trying to get in here and be influential in our community, make a difference. I mean, I know that sounds very generic and, in some regard cheesy. But really, there's some way that you look back and you go, okay, I've made it to this point in my life professionally. I've made it to this point, with my family. And you start to say, well, I want to make a change. I make a change with myself. I make a change. It starts to grow from there, right? So you start with yourself. You start with your county, your state, your hopefully your country eventually. So just kind of hopefully empowering others, not only just by setting the example, saying you have the power and the ability to make a change and a difference here. I'm a Christian, so I really strongly believe that if you are with that relationship with Christ, that you have that power to make that change, make a huge impact in your relationship or in your community, wherever you are. So that's really what I'm aiming to do is just be the example, put in some hard work, do a lot of volunteerism, see where I fit in, um, and just try to keep making a difference where I can. That's all. Just
Hmm.
keeping it really simple.
And what have you found that has been most surprising to you as somebody who's born and raised here in Saginaw over on Bagley Street? What have you found that has been really surprising to you as you have embarked on trying to help the community?
More specifically, kind of going back to your last question, I ran for office a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
I ran for office recently. That really was eye opening for me. It's a huge experience to run for office and get introduced to a lot of community people. Not even just influential people, but the people who are running your day to day stuff and really listening to what they have to say. And also understanding some of the processes and some of the structures that we're battling here, some of the generational changes that we're seeing, and it's not even in just one sector or another. I'm seeing some of the generational challenges with all across the board with many organizations where a lot of the younger folks really want to come in. They really want to step in and they really want to make a difference.
Yeah, and it's really important that they do in this time. Saginaw is going through some major changes right now. I think generational wise, like you say,
Mhm.
and it's we always get hit on the bad, but there's some really awesome things that are happening in the community. But in order to really step up to the plate and make a difference with some of that bad, it's going to have to come from our young people. The older generation, I include myself with this, we have said over and over again, trying to have educational attainment for our youth, and keeping them off the streets and away from the drugs and the guns and all that seems to be really heightened this day and age after, I mean, we've always had that, but it seems like after COVID, it seems like the angst that everybody has experienced has really produce what we are seeing today in the community, and that's really alarming. And if you're anybody that is on social media, on the platforms, it's almost a daily occurrence in the city of Saginaw. And how are we going to make that change? So to me, it's refreshing to see someone like you who is trying to make the contacts, volunteer, be out there in the community, and try to have a voice. And I applaud you for that, because not too many are doing that, especially in our Latino community.
Yeah, and I think too, sometimes I think we, at least for me, I grew up with, the stigma that we need um, a voice, that we needed some sort of representation that, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't really see it. That's the reason why I ran for office. That's why the reason why I get involved in certain organizations is I don't feel like I was represented. And so I encourage people, you don't have to be the most educated. You don't have to be the smartest kid on the block. You just have to show up sometimes, learn, just be a part of the process, be willing to step up and get involved. And I often say this, I equivocate volunteering sometimes and getting involved in your community, in any endeavor in your community, with parenting. Sometimes you just have to show up. You don't always know what you're going to do. You are not always going to have an instruction booklet that tells you, what to expect at every turn. Just sometimes you have to show up and be willing to step in and fit in and fill the gap. Fit in where you can.
Yeah, and I have to ask you this, as a woman, did you feel, even as a woman, did you feel that there was an acceptance in terms of your political aspirations locally? And when I say that, running, for the commissioner, I mean that's a big leap, if you will,
It is.
and especially I can't even remember when there has been a commissioner in the city of Saginaw that has been Latino.
Never.
Yeah.
I would have been the first.
Wow.
And so, and I wasn't running to be the first Latina
Right, right.
commissioner. I was running again because I didn't see anybody that was representing me. I also saw the same folks in these organizations. I see the same folks in government. And I thought, it's time for change. It's just time for some fresh faces. It's time for some fresh perspective. I think that the younger generation, we communicate differently, we collaborate differently, and we are approaching challenges in different ways that I think are a little uncomfortable for some of the older generation, right? They're like, "What do you mean you talked it out?" I'm like, "Well, we came to an agreement."
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think, we're expecting some great, miraculous confrontation maybe, or some, um, I don't know, battle. And it doesn't always have to be that way. I think we're coming in with some different ideas to say, "Hey, why don't we try it this way?"
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe if we not maybe change everything and not wipe the entire process, why don't we just try to shift this problem here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And identifying problems is not a bad thing. It helps us grow.
Right. And so, as you came into putting your foot forward and saying, I want to see someone like me represented, again, was there an acceptance to your um, running for commissioners? Basically, what I'm saying, trying to
Yeah,
say,
absolutely.
it's difficult.
Adversity, yeah,
It's
receiving
difficult for
adversity.
me even to ask the question
Yeah,
because this is where our community comes
yeah.
from history, historically, and so I'll let you answer that as you are.
Yes, adversity definitely comes in all shapes and sizes. I don't think I have to really express that too much to this community in particular. However, running for office was very eye-opening um, when it came to trying to work with certain organizations who really didn't have any interest in hearing from the Latino community.
Yeah.
And I still face that, and I think that's where I've kind of I've personally struggled recently, and just said, do I really want to continue to try to work with folks who don't really want to work with you? And at some point, you just kind of have to move on and say, where can I make a difference? Where can I put my good work? And where can we build relationships? It's because that's where I'm at. I want to build relationships long term, because that's what we're lacking. We're lacking building that community. We're lacking talking to each other. We don't know how to have relationships with each other and have good conflict, right? Conflict is not always bad.
Right.
Conflict can mean growth. But to your point, we're facing so much miscommunication, the inability to be with each other, the inability to learn how to be a community again, that we're seeing all of these things, shootings in our community, people not talking anymore, um, different factions in every area. So I would like to try to change some of that, right? How do you change that? You just simply go in there and you say, okay, let's talk it out. Let's talk, bring in some people to the same table, and maybe they won't like it, but again, you just keep going. And if they don't like it, then you keep going.
Yeah, yeah, and we can grow from that. And one of my experiences that I have experienced recently in the last 2 weeks, kind of goes with this show, Mi Gente on Air, and I'm saying this, for growth and understanding, because not always is there an understanding in terms of who we are as Latinos in the community. And I recently had, there's such a polarization in our country because of the political landscape. And I recently, was trying to argue with somebody, make an argument, not try to argue with, but make an argument with, in regards to my political beliefs and all. And when I said, as a Latino, and I said it like that, they just said, nope, end of conversation because of the way you said that. And I said, okay, so as a Latino, that's what you want me to say? And they had a real problem with that, and it's just like on this show, um, one of the callers called in a long time ago, my producer will remember, and he was mad because I rolled my R's and said Rodarte instead of Rodarte, and that's who I am. That's just who I am, and I want to
Sure.
project the culture that I am from because it is needed, and I am of the belief that diversity makes our community stronger. And so, it's really to me, it's really a tough time in America, especially around the election year, come November. It makes it really difficult. And I have said also, to some, that it's very difficult to be a business owner out there out in the community. What I'm talking to is my food truck. I've
Yeah.
never experienced the type of racism that I have just being on that food truck, just because of my presence on there. And we're putting out a Mexican food and all. And it's really surprising to me that what I may have experienced in the 80s, I'm experiencing now in 2024, and it just blows my mind. So maybe I'll do a show on that in the future, but I'm not doing it because I'm complaining or I want to, as they say, pull out the race card. I want to educate people on, who we are. And, it's obvious, if you look back 40 years ago, our numbers were a lot smaller, but we have grown so much and we're here and we're going to stay here.
We are. I think the other thing is we need to be more organized. We need to talk to each other, build our community, right? More so. When we talk about facing some of the adversity from, and maybe even some racism, I have definitely experienced some of that recently. However, I'm not offended by it. I'm definitely a Christian, and to say they just don't know any better.
Mm-hmm.
And it's never hurt me. It's never held me back. I think I almost use it as fuel,
Yeah.
And so how do you teach them? You are the teacher and they are the student. And so if you take that approach, you just constantly have to teach and constantly teach because they don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Or it's just the way that has always been accepted and they're not used to change,
Yep.
And I think that since I would say 2020, and I attribute it to so much that has happened since that was a real pivotal year, with COVID and George Floyd.
Mm-hmm.
It just really changed how so many of us had an outlook in the world, because it was finally a time where we said enough is enough, and I'm talking people of color, and we said, as the years have shown us, it was just something that we always accepted, but it was like, to see the protests that went on with so many of the young people, especially in Saginaw, I was so proud because it wasn't just the African American community, it wasn't the Latino community, it was everybody that came out. I've got video to prove that. And so like it was a wonderful time in terms of the community coming together as they did. And I think that we need more of that today, and not get away from remembering how we all felt. And in a time that we are living where social media really has come to the forefront and shown us, so much on a daily, and sometimes that can be really a negative thing, but I think also it moves us, more rapidly, and it's really a strong tool, the internet. But we just got to be careful. We got to be careful with it. And I've explained that to you today about TikTok. I do. I am a TikTok user, and the attention span that you have on there. I don't even watch regular TV anymore
Sure.
because it's too long. And so it's it's crazy that the point that you make and the fact that as a community, and I think we're talking about the Mexican American community, the Latino community here in Saginaw, we really do need to talk more with each other
Mhm.
and listen, and be more accepting as to who we are, and to build on our strengths
Absolutely.
rather than divide and be jealous or have envidia. We have to be strong in our approach, as we tackle that unity, to bring unity in our own community.
And I think too, to your point, we're going to see a lot more unity. Am I proud to be Mexican? Absolutely. I don't ever shy away from saying that. But I want to see everybody at the table. I don't want to just see, all of us clumped in our own little sections. Everybody needs to blend, right? It has to be everybody sitting at the same table, coming together. But again, how do we do that? We have to learn how to get along first. How are we going to say, well, this is the example we set in the world, but then we're not leading by example?
True.
We have to be bright first. We have to come together first.
We have to be that light.
We have to be the light. And
Yeah.
I honestly, I didn't come to our community when I ran the first time because I was like, wow, I'm really kind of a little nervous about will I get support, And so when I did, and I got the overwhelming support that I get, I was like, wow, this is really pretty tremendous. And I thought, even though I have an R behind my name, that is also pretty tremendous. in this community. And, I'm more pushing what I really believe.
Yeah.
I speak from my heart. I speak with true intention. Um, I don't know. Everybody says, well, what are your plans? What do you really want to do? I
Mhm.
think that's what everybody wants to know. Like, what do you really
Well,
want to
that's what
do?
we're going to talk about when we come back out of commercial here. But, I do want to mention that, the Saginaw Hispanic community is very strong and vibrant. I think
Very
we're
much
one of the
so.
more vibrant ones in the state of Michigan, and I'm really proud of that. So we'll talk more with Andrea Pascual, and we'll talk about her plans and more about the Latino community in Saginaw. And we're back here on the live stream. I want to welcome everybody again on the Facebook live stream, the social media platform that we are talking about. And I have to throw on my glasses because I can't actually read some of the comments here. And my producer, Jonathan Dent, here, he's with us. He also has his glasses on tonight. I didn't even know you wore glasses, Jonathan. But we've got Esmeralda Melly Rodriguez. She's from Grand Rapids. She's a friend of mine, and she is. On here frequently. So I thank you, Esmeralda, for watching Mi Gente on here. And we've got Cristiana Maria, who is a part of the WSGW family. She says, fill the gap, wonderful person with a genuine heart for the community.
Oh, thank you.
So that's from Christiana. So we welcome any more comments from anybody out there. If you got a question for Andrea or myself, please put it out there in the chat room here, because it's important we hear from our listeners out there and those in the live stream StreamYard on Facebook. And how do you feel about the cold weather that came in? I'm really welcoming it,
I
because it seemed like it was a hot summer that was very muggy, didn't it?
Yes, I think in my older, wiser age, I've learned to accept the seasons.
Oh yeah,
The seasons, literally, and also the seasons of your life,
yeah.
and the seasons of different things that come along in your life. So
And there's one guarantee: there's always change.
always change.
But I love the season of fall and autumn, and I'm welcoming that. Especially
Mhm.
somebody who has been out there on the food truck in the summer, in the
Oh
humid,
yeah.
in the heat, which was always at least 10 to 20 degrees hotter than outside. So it really got to me. It really got to me this year, and that's probably my age. So I'm really welcoming, going out, opening the door, and taking that deep breath of fresh, cool snow air that Michigan is known for. So we're going to go back into the show, and we're going to talk more with Andrea Pascal and Pascal Pascal, like rascal.
Pascal.
Okay, and
Pascal.
so it's Andrea Garza. No, you were Hernandez.
I was a Hernandez.
Yes, your
Yes.
mother was the Garza. Okay,
Yes.
but we're gonna
Yes.
go back into the show, and we're gonna talk more with this Latina, this fiery Latina. Welcome back. Welcome back to Mi Gente on Air. It is September. We are in fall, the fall season, and we, look at this time. Many Mexicans, Latinos will look at it as a time getting ready for all the holidays coming up. And of course, one of those is Dia de los Muertos, which is at the end of October and beginning of November. And that has become increasingly popular in our community as the years have gone on, especially since, of course, the movie Coco by Disney. But I'm really excited for that, because this year we will be celebrating the 15th, the quince of Dia de los
Wow.
Muertos celebration at the Unión Cívica Mexicana. And 15 years before the movie, we were pushing that as something that could really propagate our culture and heritage in the community. So get ready for Dia de los Muertos, and we're going to have a, a celebration from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. on November 2nd at the historic Union Civica Hall. So if anybody wants to participate, come on out. We're going to have great food,
Mm.
and we're going to have some ofrendas, the altars that are so beautiful, as well as Calavera Skull contest. The best that comes in full Calavera face will receive first place prize $100. So come on out. But
Mm.
tell us a little bit more, as you said, as we said before the show. Um, as far as what your plans are as a community dreamer,
Oh, the plans.
because now you're at a moment here at a crossroads almost, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, we talked about getting in where you fit in, right? And if folks really aren't into the change or not into, maybe some of your ideas, or maybe you're not feeling like this might be a good fit. I felt a lot of that. And you kind of, I keep moving on, right? And so I think I found some good organizations. I really like Lead. I love working with them. It's an organization that has really shown me transparency and has welcomed a lot of diverse amount of people, right, including myself. And I appreciate that they've welcomed me with the big R behind my name. um, the other efforts I'm doing and working on are some of the tech stuff, right? I've worked and looked at some of the organizations that we have here in our Mexican American community, and I started by looking at those. I built the Mexican American Council.org website,
Hmm.
and that houses a directory. And so that kind of brought me to, well, we could put everybody under one house, right? Put everybody under the same umbrella. And so that really got me looking at different websites and different how people are advertising. And I'm noticing we don't have a lot of websites.
Yeah.
We are relying a lot on Facebook, and that can really get you quite far. But Facebook, as we all know, has a lot of limitations. And as I was expressing on my own personal Facebook, depending on the algorithms, you can really get buried as a local organization or as a local business owner. So the algorithms are not in your favor when it comes to Facebook. So it's really not the best way, especially when somebody's looking you up on Google. So my goal is to try and help get everybody at least a website who wants to get a website,
Hmm.
at least at an extremely discounted rate. If you have a 501c or maybe something of that nature, maybe we work out something, at a very, very discounted rate, or maybe even free for a charity, if the charity is right. So trying to offer services in that way that say, hey, let's try to streamline your business, or maybe I can consult you on some business processes. That is what I do professionally, is consult companies across the United States
Hmm.
and try to help them, streamline and make their businesses more efficient as well.
Well, I remember in the early 2000s when the .com um, days were very prevalent, and everybody was rushing to get websites. I remember paying $5,000 for a website in those days,
Yeah.
because I didn't know anything in regards to websites and trying to program it. Um, and then it seemed to kind of like move towards being obsolete a little bit. But I mean, social media, everything is changing so rapidly. And I think that, you know, to do a website and to spend that time can be very time consuming. And
Mhm.
I know that I'm guilty of it.
Mhm.
I have for years have had websites, and then sometimes you just fall off and you forget about it, and
Sure.
and then you realize that, hey, we're not online anymore, and
Right.
and that's something, because I know that's something that you looked at with the Union Civica, and I think
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure we were online up until May or June for
Mhm.
Cinco de Mayo, and that's something that you have to update and make sure you're aware of what's going on with your websites, because they can fall off at any time, right?
Right, and it goes even more into website, right? So we even talked about integrations, right? So feeding your live feed into other platforms. Are you
Yeah.
plugged into all of your Instagram, your social, all of your Snapchats, and your Facebooks, whatever social media platform you're on,
Yeah.
are you plugged in, and are we making it streamlined so that it's not cumbersome for you?
Yeah.
And so that's part of building that for you, right? And so it changes it should change your business.
Well, this year in October will be the 4th year of Mi Gente on Air when I started this show with WSGW. And I've had a few producers. Um, and I remember when I came on, it was supposed to be simply a radio broadcast. We didn't talk about live streaming. And our good friend Jonathan, my producer, the producer before you, Chandler, said, "Oh, we're gonna put you in front of the camera, Larry." And I remember him saying this to me, and I'm like, "No, you're not," because one, I can't see, and I did not want to wear glasses on. I'm so vain, right? And so I had to actually go out and get eyes checked and get contact lenses, and then I didn't want to wear the contact lenses because if you're a contact lens user, very cumbersome, and I was getting
Mhm.
infections. I went to Europe with wasn't thinking with one set of contacts. The first day I'm there, it drops in the sink. I couldn't use my contacts.
Oh
So I
my
said, you know
gosh.
what? I wore them, I think, for the first year of the streamlining with Chandler, and then I just gave up. Now I got these. I'm not that vain where I'm not gonna put on glasses if I can't see. But it's really something how this show has evolved where we are doing it, completely online. And at one point, I even going back to our what we were talking about, I actually went on Spotify and put the shows on there.
Oh
I think the
yeah.
first, I want to say 50 shows, and then I just gave up. It was too
It's a
much.
lot of work.
Yeah, I'm like, I can't be doing this.
Yeah.
Even though I had friends from Detroit and saying, "Hey, are you on Spotify? Can we look you up on Spotify?" And I'm like, yeah, but I just kind of gave up because it's a lot of work. And
It
so,
is.
but it's very important to, like you said, to put, to share onto the different platforms. And, like I know that this show, Mi Gente on Air, is on YouTube. Every week we put it on YouTube, but
Mhm.
I don't think it goes anywhere beyond that, except for, of course, when we're doing our Facebook social media on the live stream. So maybe that's something that we can look into do in the future. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah. You at least you're aware that you need an online presence, right? A lot of folks I'm feeling like are still like kind of tippy toeing into, really understanding what it means to be online rather and beyond Facebook, right? We're kind of stuck at
Hmm.
Facebook. And if you can't grow beyond Facebook, you know what that means. Your business is going to be hindered. So I would like to see our community grow
Hmm.
and really be part of a prominent part of our community. The way that you really become a part of the community and become a real voice and having a seat at the table. And what I learned in running for county commissioner is being a part of the commerce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Right.
Good point. Very good point. And at one point under Mi Gente magazine, um, Dave Maurer, who was actually one of the ones who hired me here at WSGW 4 years ago, um, he was made a comment in regards to our presence on the Mi Gente magazine um, website where I would put the shows on there because at first, when they asked me to do this show, they asked what name would you want, and I kind of wanted to shy away from Mi Gente just because it had been, at that point, I think 25 years as a magazine, and sometimes the hit back that I would get just simply because of the longevity of the magazine,
Hmm.
can not always be favorable. And so I was like shying away from that. And Dave said, "No, why not?" And he actually made the logo for it. And I said, "Well, okay, I guess Mi Gente on Air." And here we are, 4 years
Yeah.
later. Never thought that, I was going to be doing a show in broadcasting after all those years of, not being in broadcasting. But it has been a real blessing. And as you say, it has really been, you know, a voice at the table for
Yeah.
our community.
Yeah.
And I hope that we continue that. And, I know that Cristiana Malacara, she's got her, that's what
What
she
she said.
said. I always
Hmm.
forget. It's so funny because one of my favorite comedians, she had a show and she was on Seinfeld. What was her name? Um, you know who I'm talking about. She also had that president show. She was
Elaine. What
Elaine.
was well, she played Elaine. That was
Yeah,
her
what was
name.
her name though?
Julia
Dreyfus.
Dreyfus.
Yes, Julia Dreyfus. She had a show called the old Christine. Remember that?
Oh my
Do you
gosh.
remember what I'm
I
talking? It's
do, but I
like
haven't
one of
seen
my
it. Yeah.
favorite shows because she always made me laugh. That she's really a good comedian. Where was I going with this?
Christiana.
Christine. I forgot where I was going with this.
For Christiana's show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Which
and
is awesome, by the way.
yeah, and Christine or Elaine, no, Julia Dreyfus. Julia
Yes.
Dreyfus. She had that show, The New Adventures of the Old Christine. That's what it was. In
Oh.
Christiana's show, that's what she says. It's kind of like these long, and it's like I can't, I cannot
Disassociate those two from each other.
no, I have I'm dyslexic when it comes to
Oh.
that kind of thing as well as numbers. People don't know that about me.
Oh.
If you tell me a number over the phone, I'm like, do not say anything after you give me that number because I will totally get it wrong if you do. I'll remember something out of
Right.
that. My brain is like confused. But so that's what I was trying to bring forth is the fact that after all of that, we use so much of the time just to say that show. That's what she says. Is a long name. And so we had Christiana on Mi Gente on air, and she's doing some great things in the community because
Oh, wonderful.
she's that new voice, that new
Mhm.
generation that
Yes.
is, really making an impact and with lead and,
Yes.
other things that she's involved with. So,
I
so
I think to your point too, when we talk about diversity, I think we often think of skin color, right? And
yeah,
we immediately go to, Mexican or, those types of things, those types of titles. For me personally, because I work with people internationally, it's diversity of thought. It's the ability to bring a different thought and a different perspective and a different way to communicate that effectively so that you're not making people feel isolated and you're making
hmm
people feel included, and you're making them feel like, I want your talent at the table, right?
yeah, yeah.
And that's a different type of conversation. That's an entirely different type of conversation that we're trying to have with folks. Um, my big overall plan when I first ran, and I still feel this way, from the bottom of my heart, if I really had it my way, I would like to see one, first and foremost, everybody give their life over to the Lord Jesus Christ. I say that first and foremost. But secondly, I would like to see my community get off welfare. I would like to see us have generational wealth. I would like us to talk about financial security.
hmm
I would like us to have long-term plans in property and investments and having different types of conversations like that with our community.
And so, if there's anybody out there that's listening to this program on Sunday evening here on the broadcast world and is involved with that could maybe, educate us on that because I am a firm believer that, you know, um, credit and FICO scores and all that is not something that our community knows too much about.
Mhm.
And especially, I think that I know that is taught in some European schools, you know, starting from very young ages. And I know that as I was growing up and coming out of college, I was hit with all kinds of credit card companies, as a newly college graduate, and that got you into trouble sometimes,
Oh, yeah.
and if you don't understand the basics of credit, it can be detrimental for you for years, especially if you have high student loans at the same time and you're trying to start a family and, it really affects whether you can get a house, and that's not, you're right. It's not spoken in our community.
And I really want to see us do better in those arenas, right? You say having a seat at the table, and I'd like to take that a step further. And I'd like to say I'd like to own the table.
All right. I like that. Well, there's a young man. His name is Tito de Leon, and he's probably be surprised that I mentioned his name on here, but I think that that's some what he is involved with. And I haven't reached out to him yet. I know he reached out to me at one time, and I was busy with something, but I'm going to have him on the show, and we're going to talk about some of that. And I think it's really important for our youth today. And I don't think it's always necessarily a Latino thing. I don't think young people in general, but we as trying to help our own community, I think we need to bring that more to the forefront.
Yeah, and making it part of the, just a regular conversation. It doesn't have to be a special event. When we talk finances at home,
Hmm.
it's just a regular part of the conversation. It's not, hey, let's set aside, yes, we have a budget talk. Don't get me wrong, we have a scheduled budget talk, but talking about finances and talking about investments and talking about financial securities, those are common conversations that we're having in front of our children, right? So
Hmm.
how do you get them involved and how do you get them interested is just making these conversations normal and part of the conversation every day, or weekly or monthly or whatever, just not making it so that it's not being said,
Right.
period. Right. And then your kids are listening to that. Your kids are always picking up whatever
Hmm.
you're dropping. And so just talk about that. That's how they get educated, is they're listening to you.
Yeah,
They
and I
really
and
are.
I, I think I'm going to attribute a lot of what your strong beliefs and your strong opinions and information to your mother. Blanca was and when I remember Blanca, man, you didn't mess with Blanca. She's a
No.
very strong-willed
Mhm.
woman, and her and Margot, I can see them running around those baselines and the way they ran. But I'm sure they're going to see this eventually. But how you
Yes.
doing, ladies? It's been many years. It's been many years. But my sister Nancy said, "Yeah, ask her how Margot's doing." And she stood up in her wedding in 1988. So that's how far back our families actually go. And I don't even know if when you and I met, did you know that?
I knew Nancy, um, but I think it was just kinda like one of those things, like, you didn't really
Yeah.
make it the connection entirely,
Yeah. Well,
until
Nancy
you
must have
talk
known
about
you
it.
as a little girl, probably.
Very little
Yeah,
girl.
because I mean, we were talking years ago, and so
Very,
wow.
very little girl.
Yeah.
That was before I was married, before I had kids. I mean, I was very, very, very young.
Yeah, and your uncles, Renee,
Everybody's doing wonderful.
one of your uncles went to Michigan State University with me actually. Or
That would have
I
been
would see him in the library. We would connect. We were, very few
that
from
would have been
Saginaw.
Joelle.
Joel, I miss
Joelle.
Joel. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. See, like your mind just kind of forgets sometimes, at my age. But it's nice to reconnect with the Garzas, through you, because they were involved with my family quite a bit, with the connection between my sister and your
Yep.
aunt. So that's awesome.
Hardworking family, they're like the salt of the earth type people.
Hmm.
I really attribute a lot of my personality and my, to
It's
like your
written all,
point.
it's written all over your face. And
Yeah,
I can see the
you know,
strongness that where you come from. And the other thing is you come from a very strong aunt as well with another generation. And many of my listeners that watch this show will know Florinda
oh my goodness,
Torres.
that's a strong woman right there.
Wow, yeah. I was afraid of Flo. I called her Flo. Well,
Oh
we
yeah,
were good friends.
she has a presence when she walks in a room. That's for sure.
Yeah, she does a sharp dresser, and she worked at Jacobson's back in the day when
Mm-hmm.
Jacobson's was
Oh
going, and
yeah.
Hudson's,
Oh
and
yeah.
she was a part of the Mid Michigan Hispanic Business Association, one of the founders
She's
in
been in
1985.
she's been involved in quite a bit in our community. Another huge community leader that's kind of like one of those ladies that kind of just stays under the radar. She does a lot of work and she doesn't ask for any,
Hmm.
thanks or pats on the back for it. She just kind of gets in there and does the work wherever she can, and she still is present. She's given me a lot of advice.
Awesome. That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, we've only got 4 minutes left in the show, and I just want to, give you the opportunity to say what's on your mind, where you're at today, what's on your mind, what are you thinking, and just elaborate on all that you've told us today.
Um, I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you and visit with you here in the studio. This is wonderful. Um, Talking about myself is a little difficult. I think running for office is allowed me to be a little bit more comfortable with that and becoming more comfortable with talking about myself. Especially when you're talking about, trying to make a difference in the community, you really want to kind of focus on your work. And I really hope that my work speaks for itself. So I'm going to continue to be out in the present, be out in the community wherever I can. Um, I'm not going to say yes to every endeavor. I'm definitely very intentional with my time and with my efforts. So if I feel like there's somewhere that I can really make a difference, that's where I will be. I will be where I am called. I definitely listen to the Lord. So if the Lord's telling me that's where you need to be, girl, that's where I'm headed. So I'm always listening. That's for sure. Bigger picture is I just try to keep people involved. I try to say, get involved, get involved, get involved. And then I try to at least have some sort of one-on-one consultation. How do you see yourself getting involved? Where do you see yourself? And just kind of plugging people in, whether that means they want to get involved in politics, they want to run for office, they want to volunteer at a local organization. How do I run on a board? How do I get on a board? How do I really assert changes? And I think that's another thing we need to learn as a community is
Mm-hmm.
how to run boards and how to get on some of these organizations to really make changes, and understand the structures of boards, because that's how our government is structured. And so if
Yeah.
we can understand how these things are structured, we can get involved and really make change, how change needs to be done. And not very many of us are educated on that. And that's not just our community. That's across the board. Many
Mm-hmm.
people just don't know how or don't know what it means to get involved or know what it means to be involved in their local community.
And the necessity of once you are on a board that you're an active board member, not just on a board to be on a board, but
True,
actually make a
true.
difference.
And I can speak to that too. When you feel devalued, or when you feel like you've been disenfranchised, that's where I say, I've walked away. I've had to walk away from organizations and things where I've put into and thought where I could put some real energy and make changes, but then you realize, okay, I'm putting my energies in the wrong places. So I'm looking to change that and just say, hey, where can I put my work? Where is the Lord supposed to be putting me, to spread His word and to do good work, right? And to just be that good example. That's what I'm looking for.
Amen.
Maybe keep it
Amen.
simple. Keep it
I,
simple.
I do want to make a mention here. You got some fans. Carlos Orozco. He's saying Andrea with a big exclamation point in an emoji that's got his hand up.
I love Carlos.
Teresa Landowski. She says, "Hi, Vanessa Veliz Flores. I'm watching too." So I guess Vanessa
Oh,
Veliz Flores is watching. We've got Johnny Estrada, who is a member of the Civica. He's saying Julia Louis Dreyfus. He knew exactly who I was talking about.
yep.
Couldn't get it out, Johnny. And then Elvis Mackle's on here from Christmas with Angels and says continued growth with two hands clapping. So that's awesome. And I forgot, I can't move it up, but we are at the end of the show. And I just want to thank you so much, Andrea Pascal, for being with me here tonight, for opening that conversation that we have when we initially met. And, getting a chance to see who I am, because I don't think I ever got that chance. And,
Yeah.
You can talk to Margot and Blanca and they'll tell you exactly who I am. No, but so thank you so much for being on the show. And I hope that it was a good experience for you,
Yeah.
and that you have grown tonight as well in your endeavors down the road for what you're going to do. So thank you, everybody, for being with us here tonight. It's a great show, and we'll see you next week here on Mi Gente On Air. So there you have it. We had a great guest, great conversation tonight. And, I really got to see who Andrea Pascal is in the community. And, when we have someone of this caliber and this educational talent and not afraid to put your foot forward. I mean, that's, I think, a lot of the issues. And I've seen your growth, just from, say, 6 months ago when I started seeing you live on your Facebook page, and how you, even today, when you're talking about the big issues with what's going on with Diddy. I mean, that's huge because it's going to affect everybody. And that's a whole another conversation that I'm sure Jonathan's going to get into with on United Shades of Grey, which, by the way, Andrea alluded to the idea of watching other shows, such as United Shade of Grey, with our good friend Kareem Bowen. I started Mi Gente On Air with his show after George Floyd had passed. Alpha Media Studios kind of gave the directive to, we have to be more diversified in our broadcasting. And that's why United Shades of Grey with Kareem Bowen, an African American show. He was also doing the show on 100 or 107 which I kind of
107.1, he does Straight Talk.
straight talk, yes. And he man, knowledgeable, just knowledgeable. And him and Jonathan go at it, and I do watch that. Sometimes I'll make a comment or two. It's been a while, but great information. If there is something that is affecting the nation on a national level, that sometimes and sometimes not involves the African American community, Kareem has got great insight as to,
Wonderful.
yeah. And so I really, would encourage you to watch that show, as well as to my Facebook live stream listeners, because he does a really good job with
Okay.
that. And so, anything you want to say, Jonathan?
I want to let the listeners know, if you can, I don't have a mic, they can hear every episode of Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.com. They all get posted there as podcasts. You're talking about Spotify earlier.
Wonderful.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wait, so like,
Make sure that they can't hear me right now.
oh, so to my producer, because we're in a studio here where we're not in our usual setup, he said that you can listen to every episode of Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.com, which is the website for the radio station. And I didn't even know that myself. I always go to YouTube if I wanted to look back, but there's 4 years of shows on there now. That's a long time.
Maybe not every episode, but every episode going back probably close to 6 months to a year.
Oh, okay.
A decent amount to watch.
There's a lot there.
A lot of content.
Yeah. And it's really funny to, go back to some of those early shows and listen to me. And I'm just like, wow. I remember, Jonathan, do you remember this, when I would come with a script? I would have scripts in the beginning, and like that would just kind of ease my mind to like go into conversation. And now
Sure.
I can just come out with conversations or wherever my mind is. And so
I have a rule. I actually don't write any of my speeches.
mhm.
I
It comes from the heart.
it genuinely comes from the heart, and people will ask me like, "Well, do you remember what you said?" And I said, "Well, I typically say the same thing because I genuinely speak from the heart, so I don't ever have to remember what I said." It's just
Yeah.
I kind of sound like a broken record, I think. Um, because I genuinely want to do what I want to do, right? And I think if you know what you want to do, you keep consistently repeat that and you say that.
Yeah. And I'm the same way. I never write speeches, because if I do and I'm reading them, I'll get so
Mhm.
tongue twisted and everything else. And then you worry about, oh man, I messed up. And, so like typically we'll try to, when I am asked to speak, I will just basically speak from the heart. And that's,
So I do pray. That became how do you want to say? It became a thing every single time. Like every time I had a speech to do or somewhere to go, I was like, okay, well, you're going to go up there by yourself. Well, not really. Right. Just say the prayer. He's going to be up there with you. He's going to give you the right words. And, again, I'm a believer. So, I'm really only here as his tool. So he's going to tell me what I'm supposed to do when I get up there. And 9 times out of 10, I hate getting up there. I hate being in front of the crowd. But for some reason, he's made me very good at it, and
yeah,
he
you've
puts me
come
in
a
those
long way.
places.
You've really
So
come a long way fast. And by the way, you got Blanca's laugh. You laugh just like her.
we sound exactly the same. My
Yeah.
sister and myself and my mom, if all 3 of us get on the phone, you'd never know who was who.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of lost the idea that we're still on the live stream here, but we're here. And just thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in as you have, and those that have made comments and all. And we'll be sharing this through Facebook and different platforms. So you can hear this conversation whenever you want. And we just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to be with us here on Mi Gente on Air. And again, we'll see you next week. Adios.